My spooky brethren and sistren, ghosts and ghouls, and all of those alike. Do y'all remember when horror actually used to be scary? I mean, it seems as if over the past 5 to 10 years, horror has really shifted. And not necessarily for the better or worse, but it certainly is different. Of course, we've had our bangers for sure, but let's be honest, horror is just not scary like it used to be. And in this video, we're gonna break down why horror has been different over the past 5 to 10 years and what are some of those differences in the types of movies that we get now. But before we jump into that, y'all go ahead and subscribe to the gang. We're on the road to 10K subs, so every sub will mean the world to me and certainly will appreciate that. So y'all go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel for more of your horror needs, and we'll get this thing rocking right now. Alright, spooky gang, we're gonna jump straight into it. And so with the first point in terms of what is making horror different, especially in terms of how scary things used to be in comparison to today, it's starting off with the PG-13 rating movies, which is supposed to be our budget terror. PG-13 horror movies are almost a curse at this point. Studios want to make their money back and, make sure that they're very successful. And for them to be successful, you have to have some successful PG-13 movies, because that's where you get all of your teen audiences going into the movie theaters, acting like little assholes and stuff like that. So, but all that stuff is super important to box office production and all that good stuff. But with box office production, we also want the movie's production to be good as well. And what we've seen over the years is the quality of those PG-13 movies are getting worse and worse and worse. You get less gore, less disturbing visuals, and you get minimal real tension. So it's just like a lot of these core elements of what makes a good horror movie a good horror movie, a lot of these movies are missing. And it's not even necessarily saying that horror needs to be gory, but when you have a story that really demands that, and then you're pulling punches in every single direction, then it's just like you've really left yourself with an undercooked film. Like, nobody wants fear that's on training wheels. Like, go ahead and let it all loose. That's what we came to watch the movie for. Like, back in the day, things used to be different. And by back in the day, my version of back in the day is like roughly about 10 years ago and beyond. But back in the day, like movies like Lights Out, Insidious, that elevator horror movie Devil, like movies like that, like those are all PG-13 movies, and I think that they accomplished what they set out to accomplish. Even with the movie Devil, I mean, yeah, it's a really simplistic concept. These people are trapped on an elevator, this, that, and the other. It's not the most mind-blowing thing that you've ever seen in your life, but it does have a genuine tension and scare-building factor, because one, people don't like being trapped on elevators, so that's just one thing, all by itself, in the claustrophobia aspect that comes around that as well. But then you have people that are just dying, in the elevator, and people can't tell why. And then there's like different dark and quick little cuts of like devil faces and like demonic forces. Like all of that adds like really nice atmosphere. Insidious did the exact same thing, but when you compare that to movies that we get nowadays like Truth or Dare and Megan and Tear It and Night Swim, is just like it doesn't compare whatsoever. Like a lot of those older films have rewatch value. Lights Out has rewatch value. None of the ones that I just named, of the more modern movies really has that much rewatch value, to be honest. It really doesn't. The second and one of the most important points of why horror movies aren't the same and aren't necessarily as scary as they used to be is we are really in an era of style over scares. Like lately, horror has pretty much just been beautiful, and also in some cases kind of boring. Like, we get all of these beautifully shot movies, the style and the cinematography, the atmosphere, the color palette, the acting performances, just so raw. We have so many great things and great elements that are going on in horror movies that they forget about the scary part of it. We're really living in this era of elevated horror, where it takes metaphor heavy storytelling and aesthetics. And don't get me wrong, like I said, they are genuinely enjoyable and they really are some great movies. But once again, we just still see way more of that style than we see movies that are really set out to terrify you and leave you with a level of dread that is just like, oh my God, I don't want to rewatch this movie, but not because I didn't enjoy the movie, but it scared the crap out of me. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's what we're really missing. The perfect movie that comes to my mind when I think of like this style over scares is The Substance. And I think The Substance is a great movie. Really good all around. I didn't necessarily like the third act, but still, that's beside the point. But just visually, that movie is stunning in almost every aspect. Like, there's really nothing to complain about with that. But what part of that movie even drove some level of a scare for you? It didn't. Exactly my point. So it's just like, there's so many movies that are along those lines that we really forget what the whole root of what a horror movie is, which is the scares, the tension, and letting the scares and the tension be the thing that build the atmosphere rather than the style and the aesthetic building the atmosphere, if that makes sense. Then, of course, another difference between some of the movies that we used to get in comparison to the movies that we get today is an over-explanation of the monster or the villain, your antagonist, altogether. Like, let's keep it real. The real thing that's not scary is when you get basically a PowerPoint presentation telling you every single fact and detail about your villain or your monster. That is just like, dang, well, I didn't need to know half of that stuff. For some reason, modern horror has this weird obsession with really giving things a backstory. Something always has to have some type of motive or some timeline trauma which led them to be the way that they are, or all this other stuff. Like, we don't need the origin stories of a lot of these things. And perfect example of way back in the day, of course, my favorite movie, Halloween. We didn't know why Michael killed his sister in 63, and we didn't know why Michael wanted to go after Laurie in 78. And that's what made it great. It's the fear of the unknown. Like, just some random 6-year-old child all of a sudden snapped and wanted to kill people. The thought of that is way more scary than you explaining, oh, why he did that, and now all of a sudden he's in a cult of thorn and blah, blah, blah. You get my point? A modern example of a movie over-explaining would be like Annabelle Creation, for instance. Annabelle Creation, they wanted to give her whole backstory in trying to show us how the dog came to be, and then that you have this whole orphanage thing and a sad backstory, and then you just completely forget about the terror from there. And then not only that, on top of you over explaining your monster, here comes your bad CG right along with it. And I think those two tie together pretty well, because not only do we know a whole lot about your monster's backstory, but now with bad CGI, they just look like a goofy cartoon character. I've talked about this numerous times on the channel, that how your imagination is always going to be scarier for the most part than what you see visually on screen. And so that's why it's that much more important for our directors to really craft their scares and craft their tension and keep their villain or their monster in the shadows. Like, yeah, let us get a peek of them or like a silhouette of them so we get an idea, like a rough idea of what they probably look like. But we do not need to see every single facial feature and every single thing that they got going on. Like, all of that just takes away from everything that they could have possibly been. Same thing like when you're laying in your bed at night, regardless of if you just saw a horror movie or not. If you land in your bed at night and it's dark and you got your closet door open and you look into your closet door, it's literally the scariest things that you could ever imagine popping up in your head about what could potentially be in that closet. But what a modern horror movie would do is they would do that almost exact same thing, and then they will have like Krusty the Clown coming out. Like, it's just like, it's so much that they're missing. It's just like, it makes the movies almost feel weightless in a lot of ways. And the next point to me for why these movies are different as well is I think meta horror is really tired at this point. And meta horror and elevated horror kind of go hand in hand, but they're not exactly the same thing. But meta horror is more so talking about the self-referential aspect of things. And yeah, a lot of these movies genuinely are that. These movies are just too aware of the fact that they are horror movies, and they play into the tropes too hard. It's like, okay, we get it. Yeah, Scream brought that into play in '96. And we genuinely appreciate that. And if we get a movie once every blue moon that shows some of that homage and appreciation to bringing that aspect to horror, giving that homage to Scream because of that, perfectly fine. But when the majority of your movies kind of follow that same formula, whether it be, Abigail or the Scream franchise continuing on, and Cabin in the Woods, movies like Freaky, and like all of that, like all that stuff is just too meta. It kind of takes characters out of the situation almost, in a way. It's like, damn, like, I don't even feel like you genuinely feel like you're scared, because it feels like you are aware that, oh, I'm in a horror movie, so maybe I should act like this, or maybe I should act like that, as opposed to it feeling like, oh, this is my natural instinct of, oh my God, I'm fight or flight, I need to save myself. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's a complete difference and a delineation between the two. And lastly, and one of the biggest reasons why we find that horror movies today are different from how they used to be 10 plus years ago, is really we're kind of just desensitized, and we're really just too smart for a lot of the things that horror movies are bringing today. Let's keep it real, Spooky Gang. We've almost seen it all. Like, we genuinely have. So, I mean, it's just a hard truth at this point. We've seen the home invasions. We've seen possession. We've seen found footage. We've seen creepy kids. We've seen demons, clowns, cults, cannibals, the whole nine. We've seen all of that stuff. And if a new movie comes out and the basis of the movie is, you know, one of those things that I just listed, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a bad movie. I mean, one of my favorite movies of all time at this point now is Smile. Smile's formula isn't anything special or anything like that, but it does what we already know at a very high level, and that's something that I can really appreciate. Same thing with a movie like Talk to Me and some of those. So like, yeah, we have a select few movies in the modern times that do try to execute on we are trying to terrify you. It's too many movies that are not doing that nowadays. And that's okay. We can still have those movies. We just need more of the movies that are trying to drive home all of those scares and just trying to come up with scares in the most creative way. Like I said, the story itself might not necessarily be the most original thing, and it's very hard to be the most original thing you've ever seen. But there are so many different other elements in a horror movie where you can make your movie feel unique and make it be able to stand on its own. And even though we are desensitized and even though we have seen it all, there's still some level of appreciation we'll be able to have as long as those movies actually aim to try to do those things. So moral of this video is, we're jaded, and if horror wants to scare us again, it's gotta dig deeper than these stylistic monsters and all of the loud noises. But yeah, Spooky Gang, that is all I have. Y'all comment down below what you think of horror today, and what do you think about its scares versus the scares that we used to get back in the day, because there is a clear difference. So I just want to get you all's opinion on that. Y'all like and subscribe if y'all are new. Just like I mentioned in the intro, we are on the road to 10K subs, and we're definitely going to hit that mark, and we're going to keep grinding until we do. But yeah, that is pretty much it, Spooky Gang. So until next time, y'all already know the vibes. Y'all stay blessed and y'all stay spooky.